representative of Congressman Lee, Chris, Mayor Gale, council member, old friends and supporters of Tibet, and members of the Tibetan community in Northern California. It's a deep honor to be here representing the Office of Tibet and His Holiness the Dalai Lama and participating in today's 56th anniversary of the Tibetan National Uprising Day. So today our thoughts and prayers go out to all those who have suffered and sacrificed their lives for Tibet and for all those who continue to suffer under Chinese repression and occupation in Tibet. I want to also, on behalf of the Office of Tibet and the Central Tibetan Administration, take this opportunity to thank the city of Berkeley, the city and the people of Berkeley, because for all these years, they have given us the opportunity to assemble here and commemorate this very important day. Many Tibetans live here in the city, live as good, law-abiding residents of Berkeley, but Tibetan Americans also have a very important responsibility, a responsibility to represent the hopes and aspirations of 6 million Tibetans everywhere. Just this past week, we witnessed another Tibetan, a woman from Amdo Ngaba, committing self-immolation. Nochugla is the first Tibetan to commit self-immolation this year, and she joins 136 other Tibetans who have self-immolated since 2009. Let us all unite and work together in ensuring that 47-year-old Nochugla's sacrifice and the sacrifices of all the other Tibetan self-immolators before her does not just become another grim statistic, and that their lives are not sacrificed in vain. Why are Tibetans self-immolating? Why are Tibetans being forced to take such extreme measures such as self-immolation? What are their demands and aspirations? Tibetans are self-immolating because they're saying enough is enough. They can't take any more of the Chinese government's policies of political repression, religious suppression, economic marginalization, cultural assimilation, environmental destruction of Tibet and Tibetans. 6 decades of harsh Chinese government policies have completely alienated Tibetans in Tibet. They long to see their beloved leader, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, return to Tibet and secure genuine autonomy and self-rule that would allow Tibetans the freedom and right to preserve their culture, language, religion, environment, and their community. However, the Chinese government simply does not get it. Rather than recognizing the futility of their policies, they are instead employing ever more draconian measures and policies aimed at further crushing the Tibetan people. For instance, there is a deep and pervasive level of surveillance that now closely monitors the movement and activities of Tibetans everywhere. This was also mentioned in the Sikyong statement earlier. New passports to Tibetans are being denied, and those that do have passports, the documents are being revoked. Spies and informants are everywhere. Monasteries and nunneries are tightly controlled. Artists, intellectuals, and officials with less than 100% loyalty to the party are being arrested. Nomads who once freely roamed the vast Tibetan grasslands and as ancient stewards of maintaining that fragile balance of human and environment are now being forcibly resettled in shabby and permanent shanty towns. Han Chinese are being encouraged to move to Tibet and Tibetan areas, and Tibetans are being rapidly a minority in their own homeland. Tibetan language is not being taught in more and more schools. Resources are being extracted without any regard for the well-being of the environment and the Tibetan people. The state is interfering in the selection of important reincarnate monks with officials handpicking and forcing their selection onto the Tibetan people. Lastly, Beijing has not made any serious efforts to restart the dialogue process with representatives of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan leadership. The process has been stalled since January 2010. However, as grim as the situation inside Tibet is, Tibetans are persevering. The Tibetan resilience and spirit continues to be strong. We take sustenance from a 2,000 plus years of old Buddhist civilization and heritage. Tibetans have weathered previous threats from China and other neighbors in the past, and we will outlast and overcome the current communist regime as well. There will never be stability in Tibet and China as long as the Chinese leadership does not acknowledge and address the legitimate grievances of the Tibetan people and persists with their current hardline policies towards the Tibetans. We are ready to end our struggle if a peaceful and a mutually beneficial solution is reached. However, the Chinese government should know that Tibetans have the strength and the resources to carry out the struggle for another 50 plus years if necessary. While the world is being swept in a flame of violent extremism by individuals and organizations that have resorted to violence as a means to further their goals, Tibetans, under the leadership and guidance of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, have steadfastly committed to pursuing a cause peacefully, non-violently, and through dialogue. The Tibetan leadership and people will never waver and compromise on these core principles. The international community and foreign governments should recognize, acknowledge, and support the Tibetans so that the Tibetan freedom movement becomes a shining beacon of light for all other communities struggling for their rights as well. Yes to the Tibetan way, yes to the non-violent way, a categorical no to the ISIS and Boko Harams of the world. Tibetans will prevail. Tibetans will prevail because we have truth on our side. We will prevail because we have something that no one else has, which is His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama is Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and Dr. Martin Luther King all rolled into one. His Holiness is a force for morality, a prophet of peace, and a world leader who will guide the Tibetans and end the suffering. We will prevail because we have chosen a path of non-violence, dialogue, and have proposed a settlement that takes the interests of both the Chinese government and the Tibetans. Through the middle way approach, the Tibetan leadership has rejected the extremes of separation of Tibet from China and the current status quo, which, if unresolved, will lead to the complete assimilation of Tibet and Tibetans into China. By giving up separation for self-governance and genuine autonomy and control over key issues that matters to Tibetans, be it education, religion, culture, environment, utilization of natural resources, etc., His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan leadership have adopted a far-sighted, pragmatic approach, which is the only viable approach to resolving the Tibet issue. Lastly, Tibetans will prevail. Tibet will prevail because change will come to China. Though the current PRC government is close to becoming the longest surviving government in the world, in the history of the world, there are chinks appearing in the armor of the Chinese totalitarian system. The corruptive, corrosive, and vice-like grip of China by the party, military, and a small circle of elite is coming under increasing stress. Economic, social, political, and environmental challenges are becoming more pronounced, which will eventually boil over and undo the current system and regime in China. And finally, the Chinese government has a rare but finite window of time to address the Tibet issue during the lifetime of the current His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. Rather than attacking His Holiness, we urge the Chinese to reach out to His Holiness. Rather than seeing His Holiness as a problem, we urge the Chinese government to see His Holiness as part of the solution. Rather than viewing Tibet issue as an intractable problem, we urge the Chinese government to see it as an eminently solvable, but one that requires a little bit of trust, political will, and courage. Rather than wait out His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama, hoping that after he is gone, the Tibet issue will dissolve, we urge the Chinese government to engage with him as soon as possible. It is a delusion to think that the Tibet issue will dissipate. On this important and commemorative occasion, I urge the Chinese government to reach out to His Holiness and the Tibetan leadership and meet us halfway, and let us end the suffering of the Tibetan people. Long live His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and may the aspirations of Tibetans in Tibet be fully realized. Thank you.